What's good, everybody, and welcome back to the creaTed podcast. I'm Teddy Osuna, and today I'm joined by
Isaac. Sorry, it's always a little awkward when you first start out.
Oh, no.
With podcasts.
Yeah, trust me, bro. I've been doing podcasting for a while, and the last guest that I had, it was also his first time doing a podcast. So he was kind of like fidgety and nervous and all that. I still get nervous podcasting.
Shit, for a minute there, I was about to just like throw out my like Snapchat or like my like gamer tag. I was like, what do I say? Do I say my like Instagram handle? Like, what do I say?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you got to drop your Instagram handle. Yeah.
Throw out the marketing. It's i.angelphoto. Anybody wants to follow, throw it up. I just love photography. That's it.
Yeah, man. So that's kind of what the premise of the podcast is I want to talk to a lot of creatives here in San Diego, because I feel like I was telling you when we got up here, a lot of photographers, you don't know who they are because they're never in front of the camera. They never talk about what they do and why they do it.
They love being behind the camera. They just, something about being in front of a camera, it throws you out of your whack. You're like, I don't have control here. And I think maybe that's kind of part of the kind of equation is we can do, even when we do like vlogs or something, we're still holding the camera. We're still kind of in control for the most part. But the minute it gets pointed towards us and we're not in control, it kind of throws us off a little bit. We're kind of like, what do I say? What do I do? What do I do with my hands? Kind of like
exactly.
It throws us off. But it's a nice feeling though once you do learn more about photographers specifically. Because for me specifically too, even when I've seen somebody's work and I'm like, they're amazing. When I actually meet the person, I value their art way more. I'm like, now I'm seeing a little bit more of their characteristics in that like photo itself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's their characteristic. That's who they are. That's their personality. And you start to admire way more than just the simple kind of cosmetics of it.
Yeah, true. I feel you on that because literally the two other guests that I had before you, I hadn't talked to them for longer than 5 minutes. Same with you. I've talked to you maybe 10 minutes tops.
Yeah, like, just at the event we did together.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the first time we met.
No. The first time we met was when you let me borrow your 16 to your wide angle lens.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Met because I let you borrow the lens, and then after that, we ended up finding out, and I think it was like very last minute because I posted. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be at the House of Blues for this event," and then you're like, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna be there too," and I was like, "Fucking small world." I was like, "Fucking crazy."
Yeah. And we didn't even get to talk that night because it was so hectic and so chaotic with so much shit going on.
I love that event. It was a nice looking event, but there were some like issues with them like setting up people because I remember at one point I think I was supposed to be by you, and then they moved me to the back wall, and then they moved me to another side of the wall, and I was just like, they give you only like an hour to set up, so you're just like, okay, I need to focus on my setup. Can you just please just like lay out where I'm supposed to be so I can get this knocked out?
Which is crazy because when I got there the day before, they're like, oh, we're going to show you where your spot's at and all this. And my spot was kind of where they told me it would be. But you weren't the only person that had problems with where they were going to set up. Some other dude was like bitching and complaining that was behind me where you were supposed to be. He's like, how am I supposed to sell anything if no one can see my shit? He's like, I'm blocked by the fucking runway, this and that. And I'm like, bro, I got nothing. Like, it's not on me. I'm sorry.
I'm just here to sell my stuff. Like, if it works, it works. But I mean, I really think it's all mentality too, because it's like you can have a crappy spot, but if you just make the most of it, like for me, like I didn't have the most traffic to my stuff, but the few people that did buy work from me or the few people that did stop to talk to me, it just like that fulfilled everything that I was there for. Like I spoke to an older photographer dude. He's probably about probably about 60s. But he was just like, I've been doing photography for 30 years and I could never create something like this. And I don't know who he was. I don't know his backstory. For all I know, maybe he's not really into photography. He's just making up this alias. But talking to him and hearing that were the words of affirmation that really like, I was like, okay, like you always kind of get in a mindset of, I love photography. People tell me I'm good at what I do. And you're like, I'm like, I'm good. And I feel like with photographers, you get this anxiety or like kind of like you always are analyzing your work. You're always wanting to improve it, which is part of the game. Yeah. But then when you get those like these very like special moments where you talk to people and it's kind of like, okay, maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Yeah. This is what I'm here for. And if I can sell or inspire even one photographer, I'm like, that's what I want.
That's dope, man. And let's get into your story of how you got into photography, why you got into photography, what pushes you, what motivates you to keep doing it every day. Yeah. That whole thing, you know?
Yeah. So my story is a little weird. So I was born and raised out in the Inland Empire. So not a lot of people know where that's at. So I always have to be like, oh, it's LA area, but it's more inland. So I grew up in Colton, moved out to Riverside to finish high school because I was a badass little kid. Was failing high school, had to go live with my sister for a bit. But once I moved out and lived with my cousin, we were going through some things. The eviction notices, it was just all kinds of bad. I was kind of, freshly 19 in a kind of horrible situation.
Gotcha.
At that time, I was like doing dancing. I was doing like a hip hop dancing thing. I was doing rapping. I was just trying to find something that felt like it was mine.
Okay.
And then freak accident while I was at a family reunion, I ended up dislocating my knee. I kind of was just like, we were getting evicted from our place because of some baby mama drama. We were
Gotta love it.
And then basically I dislocated my knee. So we're basically having to pack out as my knee is like, I can barely walk. And then my mom basically was like, hey, I'm out in San Diego. Why don't you just come try it out? She goes, come live with me for like a year, heal up, find a job out here. If you like it, you stay. You don't, you just go back to the Inland Empire. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I don't have any other options. I'll try it out. So I was already working at Guess at the time. So when I moved out this way, I was like, okay, I'll just start working with Guess again once I heal up.
With Guess, the clothing company?
The clothing company,
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
So I worked as a visual merchandiser. So I was kind of already dipping my toes into fashion, and I didn't know exactly what I was planning to do with that. But turns out later on, it would foreshadow that I'd use that kind of eyesight or kind of vision for photography.
Gotcha.
But for basically, I moved out there, and they were giving me crap hours. So I was like, well, let me find something else in San Diego. And the first job that I found out was a photographer at the San Diego Zoo. And it was, you don't have to have any experience. You work at the zoo. Like, how awesome does that sound? It's cookie cutter stuff, but you don't have to have any experience. And I was like, well, if I'm going to have a job in San Diego, might as well work at the zoo. Like, that'll be a cool thing to say. I was like, I work as a photographer at the San Diego Zoo. And at that time, I hadn't really touched much of photography. It was more or less like iPhone photography, throwing on Instagram, throwing filters, and being like, this is sick. This is emotional. Like, but basically through there, it honestly, I owe a lot of my photography and how I learned my settings was through that little program or that job, because you are taking pictures of people out in daylight, and you're taking pictures where you have to change everything on a fly. Like, you don't have people's patience to be like, hey, like, can I get you for a quick picture? Let me change my settings. Like, their patience is running thin because they know they're going to sell. You're trying to sell them something. So you have to do it quick, get them in and out. And then hopefully you don't annoy them enough and they buy something later on. Yeah. So being in that, I kind of picked up a camera, and it was actually Nikon.
So let me ask you, those cameras aren't set on auto then?
No, you're all manual.
Holy crap. I always wondered that about those people because, we've all seen them.
Oh, we've all seen them. They always come up, hey, let me get you for a picture. You're like, I'm good. I got a phone. Like, exactly. It's fine. But yeah, like, so they teach you straight out the gate. So of course you start off with sales, and then they slowly introduce you into photography. So you do something that's like one of the first stations I learned, which is just a green screen. You have to change your settings based off of just shirts and stuff. So if someone comes in and it's a white shirt with the light complexion family, you have to drop that setting really quick because otherwise you're going to overexpose it. Picture's not going to look good. They're not going to buy it. So you have to learn these things on the fly. And so as I kind of started learning, I was like, you know what? I kind of really like this. I was like, I like this. I was like, I don't know what it is, but I like this. So little by little, I started progressing in my job, and I started doing what is considered roaming. So once you get to this level of, proving yourself as a photographer through the company, they put you on this thing called roaming. So you're basically out in the sun. Not my favorite part of the job, but you're out in the sun 8 hours a day, just getting in pictures, and you're out by yourself. So I like that aspect of working by myself, but being in the sun 24 hours or 8 hours basically.
Yeah,
being
that's
like,
killer though.
Hey, let me get a picture of you with the giraffe in the background. Okay. All right. Just kids. All right. Just now the parents. All right. Here's your card. You can pick up your pictures later on. Okay. And you're just out there constantly roaming nonstop. You're learning your settings. You're learning if a cloud comes over and covers somebody, you better bump up that ISO or drop that shutter speed. Like, you're bouncing back and forth. And it just finally, something clicked. Okay. So like I said, I'd been doing already rapping and hip hop dancing, but none of it compared to when I started holding a camera and feeling that kind of like, I like this. Yeah. It feels right. Like, something just clicked. And so I saved up, spent my first check on a Canon Rebel T5. Okay. basic starter kit, bought it off of, I think it was one of those like, what is it? The QVC.
Okay.
Bought it off QVC, paid
Gotcha.
it in payment plans. I was like, cool, fuck yeah, let me try this. So basically what I started doing from there is after I would get off of work, you basically have free roam to kind of be in the San Diego Zoo as much as you want. Like you working there basically has a free, like unlimited pass.
Okay.
So basically what I would do from there is I would just take an extra pair of clothes, swap out of my work clothes, and then just take my camera and start shooting. And I just felt this thing. I was like, I like this. Like, okay.
How was it going? Because I know you said you started on Nikon while you were working there.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't buy into a Nikon having that.
So that was the thing. Nikon's interface was the one that like stopped me because I was just like,
It's trash.
I had to learn it, but everything felt so like complicated. Like in order to change the ISO, you got to press 3 different buttons before you do it. You got to do your shutter speed. You got to press this button and hold this down. It
wasn't intuitive.
It frustrated me more.
Yeah.
So when I was learning about cameras, everything I've known and learned is all YouTube.
Yeah.
Like whether it was hip hop dancing, I'd watch Jabberwockies, or if I was rapping, I'd listen to like YouTube rappers, and I would just pick it up from YouTube. YouTube is like my home.
Yeah.
And so
For our generation, it seems like it is for
it's
sure.
just such a learning tool.
Yeah.
I mean, even like me, like not to be all sappy, but like with no father, kind of growing up in the home, like learning how to change a tire, learning how to change my oil. It was little things that I'd have to YouTube, trial and error, learn, and then be like, okay, I learned it from YouTube. I learned
Gotcha.
from this thing. And so for me, it was like was doing all the reviews and I looked at everything. And at the time, Sony hadn't popped off just yet. So
yeah. Took a while.
I was like, okay, well, I kind of like video too. I was like, I don't know. I think that's something I could get into. So I was like, okay, Canon right now seems like it has the best to offer.
Yeah.
Seems like it's the best for a beginner camera. I like the interface. Let's give it a shot.
How old were you when you got
So,
the Canon?
Right when I picked up camera, I was right when I was picking up my Canon, I was right around 19.
How old are you now?
Actually 2 days for my birthday. So Thursday, we're filming this on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'll be 27.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I've got about 7 years or so in photography.
Yeah.
I'm kind of committed at this point. There's no going back.
Hey, that's
But,
commitment. Yeah. I'm trying to get myself a camera tattoo as well. I'm so indecisive on what to get, but yeah, I feel you.
It's so hard to make that commitment, but
Yeah.
I was like, getting this, you're securing yourself.
Yeah.
But basically, I picked out a Canon, started shooting after the zoo, and just kind of, I picked up this love for it, and I was just like, I like this. I got this picture of a jaguar. I got this picture of the giraffes, and you just start getting this appreciation for capturing not only a picture, but like a moment.
Yeah.
Like I was lucky enough to get a picture of like a giraffe with the baby feeding directly next to it. And
nice.
it caught this moment, and I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
For someone who's never seen a giraffe, for someone who's never been to the San Diego Zoo,
Yeah.
I can give you this moment, and hopefully you can live it through it, even if it's for just a split second. And so as I picked it up, I learned more and more and started getting more into the deeper side of it. So, okay, now I have this photo. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah, the
How do
whole
I make this
editing.
picture better? Okay, well, I'm going to start editing. Well, what do I need to edit? Okay, well, I'm going to start investing in a laptop. I'm going to get Lightroom. I'm going to start paying the monthly for all that. And fun little fact, if you are getting into photography, it was my kind of work around it. If you know the app Fiverr, where you can pay $5 basically, or right around, and you pay these independent artists that can do either, I've had them draw up a tattoo design or a little bit of anything really. I was able to pay them to give me a school email. So I've never went to college or anything like that, but I was able to pay like $5. They hooked me up with a school email.
Oh, shit.
And then I could use that school email, and then I could get the Adobe Suite, which is $50 now for $20.
Hey, however you got to do it.
You got to hustle. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to pay no $50 a month. What's the best way to work around? Because I really am devoted and interested in this. And so as I worked at the zoo, you start picking up little by little. And luckily for me, I ended up being a lead photographer there. So
snap.
then you start doing more of the photography side. You do more of the kind of management side. So you're
Okay.
just making sure your photographers are doing what they need to be doing, and just making sure that, numbers are hitting. You're doing more of the accounting side. So I was like, okay, so now that I'm not doing it at work anymore, I can start kind of pushing myself outside of work. And so little by little is, as I'm sure, you start hustling for those free gigs, because that's the beginning part. Is
Yeah.
You're not going to know how to do a wedding or how to do a quinceañera shoot or how to do a portrait shoot if you don't try it out, trial and error, and be like, hey, these pictures may come out great or they may not. I'm not going to charge you, or I'll charge you little to nothing, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
Definitely
you kind of have to have people that give you that kind of that opportunity or that chance, because then that's how you learn. Oh, I took this picture of this woman. The sun was right in her eyes right there. If I would have angled her just a little bit, it would have made all the difference. And you start learning. And so for me, I just started picking it up, started doing family events.
Okay.
Little cousins growing up. I have my quinceañera coming up. I want to do a photo shoot for that. Okay, cool. I'll knock that out. $100. Cool. $50. Cool. You need pictures of your bandana business. Like, okay, cool. Like, I'll do it. And just slowly but surely, you just kind of find this addiction. And then I slowly started noticing all of my check was just going to camera gear.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed I wanted, what I learned at the zoo was, okay, the camera itself is the brain. So that does a good amount, but you have to have good eyes in order for the brain and the eyes to work together. So basically, you're thinking of it like you're getting new glasses.
Yeah.
The more you upgrade your glasses, the better you're going to see. The better the pictures, the better. So I started kind of, all right, well, what's the next step? And of course, like everyone, got the nifty 50.
Yep.
Started working from there, fell in love with bokeh, and then kind of started tailoring. And it's funny because I was actually just looking at a few of my old like pictures, because I have them all archived. They're kind of embarrassing, but the like amount of like contrast and color is just like crazy, because I'm like, oh my God, you were having way too much fun with that clarity and that saturation slider. Like, you thought this was like hot shit. Like, you need to stop.
But that's how it is when you start out. You just have to crank that shit, and you're just like, oh, this is amazing.
This is sick.
Yeah.
Like, iPhones can't take this.
We've all done that shit.
Like, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's funny to see like the phase of like where your photography is at that moment, and where it starts kind of curving and getting into where you're at now, which is your style, where you started kind of taking, I like this, but I didn't like this. I like this, but I didn't like this. And you find that fine tune of like, all right, I'm at where I like it.
Yeah.
But then even then, because even now I find myself kind of like, I like what I did on my last shoot, but I think I can do this better, or I can do this different.
Yeah.
I like tweaking this better, because that orange tones was way too much for me on that last one. Maybe I want to play with some cool tones, and you start kind of
figuring out what colors
what you like. But basically, that's kind of how it started. It just was at the zoo, started investing. I would take all my free time that I had, or any type of trip I would go to. So I'm a Raiders fan. So anytime my mom wanted to go to even like go out to the Bay to go watch the Raiders play, take my camera. I'm gonna take pictures of the city.
Okay.
We're going to go to LA to go to the alleys to go shopping. Okay, well, I'm going to take my camera and go shooting. Like, I would literally have it on me, like,
at all times.
All times. Like, there'd be times where I'd forget my phone before I'd forget my camera, because I was just like so excited to take pictures.
Yeah.
And so finally saved up. And finally was like, all right, I finally hit the max with the T5. What's next? And for me, my mom's always taught me to be a conscious saver. And I kind of was like, well, I don't want to buy something new yet. My photography is good, but it's not that good where I want to invest that much in me. So I was like, let me get something that's mid-level, and I'll go from there.
Okay.
And luckily, I found on OfferUp, I think it was like $300, I got a Canon 7D.
Oh, shit. That's not bad.
And it's Mark 1, so I guess those ones got discontinued because of some issues, but I was like, I worked that thing to the ground. I like, the amount of times I took that just everywhere, and like, even now, I can appreciate my new camera because I have a Canon EOS R.
Ooh.
And it's so much lighter. So like the amount of times my arms were sore after shooting with the 7D, just constantly with the like, battery grip on it, and just like, and I'm like, all right, oh my God, I'm done for the day. Like, oh, my arm was sore. But
I can't imagine like back in the day with wedding photographers with like the 70 to 200 on that motherfucker.
Oh my God, like I got the 70 to 200, and I love it to death. It's one of my favorite lenses. But oh my God, the amount of weight and just like.
Did you get the mirrorless one or the?
No, so I got the RF.
Okay.
So I got, the EF.
Yeah, because the RF is a new one, right? Yeah.
And that one was a hard one, because I was trying to decide between, you kind of go through this overlap of what do I need versus what do I don't need. And I was like,
the want and need balance is
it's such a like. If I could have all the money in the world, I'd buy every lens possible and just be happy with an arsenal of lenses and just be in heaven. But I'm like, okay, realistically, you got to think smart. And I was like, okay, I could get the image stabilization, but that only goes down to f4. So if you're shooting a little bit darker, it's going to screw you up.
I feel you.
Or you can go to the kind of the f2.8. You're going to pay a little bit more.
The L series.
But it's going to look nicer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you kind of have to pull the trigger on it. So I was like, all right, I do more photo work than I do video work, but I do a lot of video work. So I was like, I'm going to sacrifice, go to 2.8 just for that little bit of bokeh, because I feel like everyone kind of loves that little, anything lower than like 2.8 or 2,
yeah,
you're just like in heaven. You're
Yeah.
like, it's everything I need. That's it. I'm good. But yeah, so like I picked up a 7D. As you can tell, I think I have ADD. I haven't got diagnosed yet, but I have a feeling because my stories always bounce back and forth.
Bro, that's how it is on podcasting. Trust me.
It's crazy.
My girlfriend does the same thing. Like, she'll be doing something, and then like her mind will just go somewhere else, and she'll start doing something. I was like, "Yo, we didn't finish our conversation."
It's like we were talking about cameras. How did you tell me that in the 3rd grade you had
Exactly.
Jello pudding? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, bag it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so basically saved up, started working the 7D, and that's really where I found my fine tuning of like, I love this. Like, it finally like it's set in my head that this is what you want to do. This is what, in a world like I had always gone through my life kind of being like a little bit of a loner, and like I kind of was like, I want to find something that feels like me.
Okay.
So I did hip hop dancing. I love it to death. I still love dancing, especially after a few drinks. I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like Michael Jackson over
Let's
here.
get it. Yeah.
But then it just didn't feel like if someone was like, yo, you got to dance battle this guy, or you have to rap battle this guy, I never felt 100% confident. I'd be like, I might win, I might not.
Gotcha.
But picking up a camera gave me some type of confidence that I was like, if someone was like, yo, go head to head with this other photographer, it could even be like the best pro Peter McKinnon type photographer, and I still will think in my head, I have a chance of winning.
Yeah.
I got this. Like, it felt just so comfortable in my hands, and just
That's what
it
gives
felt
you the
right.
confidence.
Yeah,
right?
it felt right. And even now, like, I think a lot of being a photographer is a lot of social game too, because most of the opportunities I had to like psych myself out, because I'm like, okay, should you go talk to that person? No, don't talk to them. Should you DM that person? No, DM them. They're not going to see it. And part of me had to like snap out of that and be like, go for it.
Yeah.
Just step out of your comfort zone. Try it. Worst case, they say no. Best case, you get your yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. And that's basically kind of how it started, kind of angling my groove for, okay, this is something I want serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because I started seeing that I was like, your want and need for, you want photography, but do you need it? And I was like, I'm willing to step out of my comfort zone because I love this so much.
Yeah.
And I want to proceed, and I want to just get better, and I want to get greater opportunities. And it really kind of set in motion where I was like, okay, you're doing this because you love it so much. And
Yeah.
when you love something so much, you're willing to go past your limits because you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
It kind of gets to the point where you need it in your life. It's not even like
weird.
I want it. It's just like I need to go out and shoot.
Yeah, like even like right now, which I'm sure a lot of people are pissed off at me, but like I don't post as often right now. And I think that's partially the pandemic, partially work just being hectic. And then like I'm still shooting. I'm just not posting as much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I'm spending my time basically when I'm off like editing, then I'm posting, and then I'm like working my 9 to 5. So it's like I haven't made that jump yet to full-time photographer,
Yeah,
but I'm like the work schedule is so crazy that I'm like, once I do have a really good set that I'm involved in, I'm like, all right, this needs to get posted.
Yeah.
But even then, you kind of get in this like, I don't know if it was like this for you, but specifically with like the pandemic and people not really wanting to shoot. Like I remember I was hitting up certain people and they're like, well, I don't know, like, I don't know if I want to go out right now. And I'd be like, crap, like, and it kind of got to me. And it kind of put me in a state where I was like, damn, like,
Well, what's the point of shooting at this
like,
point?
how am I going to shoot? Like, no one's going to want to hire me right now because no one wants to take that risk of, you know, oh, he might have something, or oh, they might be exposed. So you kind of I went through this like phase of just like shooting just normal shit in my house. Like I would set up my lighting, do self-portraits just to keep myself sane. Because I was like, if I don't shoot something, I'm going to go crazy.
Oh, bro, there was a time when I went through, I shot spec beer photos, spray paint cans, fucking my PlayStation controller. Bro, I shot everything in my house that I possibly could just for the hell of it, because I was like, I need to fucking do something with the whole pandemic
I
started.
have to. Like, I can't let my camera just stay on the shelf.
Exactly.
Like, I'm like, this is my baby. Like, I have to like have her warmed up. I have to make sure she's getting her exercise. It's like a dog. Like, got to go for the walk.
And then there was a time where I didn't shoot shit because I literally got into my head where I was like, fuck, dude, is it because I suck at photography? Like, am I not good at it? And do I just give it all up to all together? I'm just like, fuck. Like, I went like this whole valley of highs and lows of just dumb shit that went into my head. I'm like, why would I give up? Like, I love photography so much. It's just the mind just played such a game with me where I was like, fuck, man. What do I do?
It fucks with you. It
really
hard. Does. It's hard because I think for the most part with all of the different like artists specifically, I always feel like there's some mild form of either depression or anxiety that always underlying always in the back of your head.
Yep.
So for me, I started, it kind of was like my golden ticket for even before the pandemic, where I have photographer friends that are like my friend Adrian, the photographer. He literally was like, right before the pandemic, got invited to Paris Fashion Week and was shooting in Milan.
Fuck.
And I was like, part of me was like, fuck, like I wasn't upset or envious. I was more or less like, fuck, I want to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I going to have to do to get there? So it more or less motivated me. But it's crazy because in this space, there is a lot of hate. There is a lot of kind of like competitiveness and negativeness. But then there's also this like, I want to build you up because there needs to be more photographers. There needs to be better art.
And I feel like a lot, I'm not like poking fun or throwing shade at anybody when I say this, but there's a lot of cliques within this community. It's really cliquey with models and photographers where if you try to reach out to a certain model, like they're not going to ever read your message because they're just like so clicked up with 2-3 other photographers and they don't talk to anybody.
See, but there's a good light in that too, because as someone that like will dip into photography and I'll reach out to a few of my photographer friends and I'm like, I'm looking for a model that kind of fits this kind of description for the shoot that I want to shoot. And there's a good amount of them that'll be like, I know the perfect person, I'm going to recommend you. And I love that. I love the creative space of like, people just want to build up no matter how big they get. Like I love like anytime someone hits me up and they're like, hey, I just started photography. If you have any advice, I'm like, please, please, please message me. I love inspiring and trying to help people because for me, finding this kind of home or love for photography helped me through so much depression, helped me through kind of like, it helped me cope with a lot of my own like
demons,
basically. Yeah. And so when I started shooting people and even like me, like growing up, I was like super short, chubby. Like I like,
bro, I'm still short and chubby, so we're chilling.
Hey, you working that dad bod. You got it down.
Ooh, that's why I have another podcast called Dad Bods Anonymous, bro.
Check it out. Everyone else. But like for me, like I was always the type that like if I had to describe it, I was always the shy kid that was always friends with all the girls, but they never saw me past a friend. It was always like, so I was always that kind of like kept to myself and just would rather be by myself. So once I, started photography and kind of feeding off of people's confidence helped build my confidence up. So when I shoot with somebody and they're like, oh my God, that's me. There's no way that's me. Oh my God, you're so good. Like it's a little bit of affirmation that goes a long way. And it's like, okay, I did that.
Yeah,
I made them feel that confident.
I remember when I first came across your page and I saw the colors in some of your photos. I was like, God damn, how the fuck do I do that?
See, and that's why I'm like, I love it too, because I'll catch a few like non-photographer friends who will be like, oh, like this photographer's colors aren't like yours. And I'm like, that's not the point. Everyone has their own style. It's like, you're supposed to appreciate what their style is. So for me, like my style that I try to like specify is like, I see everything from the eyes of like a 3-year-old kid. Everything is colorful. Everything is beautiful. So I like using my wide angle lenses to make everything look way bigger than it is. I like emphasizing the colors in the sky because I'm trying to imagine like how a 3-year-old would see it, how young kids envision this world like it is the beautifulest, like most amazing thing in the world. But we will walk by flowers, we'll walk by a beautiful beach, and we'll just be like, it's the beach, it's whatever. But if I can capture that and make you see a different side of it, you're gonna be like, damn, I would have never noticed that.
No, and you're right about that because I took my daughter and son out like when the whole pandemic started and everything, and excuse me, I gave my son a camera and I gave my daughter a camera. It was like I gave her I don't remember what camera we had, but it was an older one, and I gave my son a little GoPro, and I was like, guys, just go out and shoot.
Go for it. Go wild.
I went through and looked at what they shot, and obviously their vantage point is a lot lower than ours.
Oh yeah.
So when I saw what they were shooting, I was like, holy shit. Like, I would never think to shoot that low or at that angle, obviously, because I'm not fucking short, that short.
You kind of miss those vantage points because you're not thinking like that. You're thinking, how can I shoot it from my size?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get down to certain levels and you see certain angles, you're like, wow, I didn't even think to shoot through that. Or I didn't think to get lower and choose this. Like, it's kind of breaking the norm of what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets to the style where you're like, oh, I like that.
Because it gets to a point where you're shooting obviously at eye level so often that it just becomes so bland.
It's just so, yeah, like it just blends together. And
Exactly.
You're like, okay, yeah, like I've done that shot so many times. Okay, well, I've seen other photographers do that shot. How can I make this my own?
Yeah.
How can I make this different? And even like, I love that, like, a lot of people shit on them, but I enjoy that people are starting to use them more. Is kind of like, everyone's starting to use like prisms and like, kind of like, I love, what is it called? I think it's like Lens FX.
Oh, Prism Lens FX from Jacob Owens.
Yeah. So like, there's different things like that you can incorporate. And I'm not saying use it in every photo. Like, if that's your style, that's your style. But I mean, just using it to step out of what is the norm.
Mm-hmm.
What is traditional photography? You know, I've seen people that they master that. They're amazing, like headshots, lighting, everything critical that you can think of. Like, if you're writing a test, 100 out of 100.
Yeah.
Perfect. But creativity stepping into that vantage point, that's a whole nother lane.
Yeah.
And it's not to kind of shit on them or talk bad on them. It's more or less, I love what you're doing. I can appreciate it, but here's a different way that I'm going. And if you can appreciate that back, then that's kind of creating that artist space for us to kind of all grow. Because maybe you might see something that, you know, you saw in my photography, and maybe you're 100,000 followers, you're shooting with celebrities, but if you look at my work and see even a sliver or something that you're like,
I'm going to try that.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
That's so, like, inspiring. Like, I was lucky enough, I shot with this denim brand. They're from Oxnard. They have a great story behind them. The main owner, his name is Trinidad, and he is a Marine veteran. And basically, he took his GI Bill and went to fit him and created his whole denim line off of that. And everything is all inspired by by the Marines. So he has the Marine red stripe on the side. Like, everything is kind of attributed to that. And then all the models he tries using are all veterans. Everything he tries to do is setting it up for, you know, his fellow veterans.
Gotcha.
And so I fell in love with the brand because I was just like, I love what you're doing. I see what you're doing. And I see there's promise. And I love that. So I want to be a part of that. If there's something I can do to help, let me know. And so being with him and kind of seeing that passion, it also inspired me. And so shooting a few things for him, I didn't realize that he had a connection with this thing called, I think it was like the Veterans Project. I'm going to butcher it. I don't remember the exact name, but
it's all good.
But it was this project. And basically they also were shooting with Trinidad and some of his clothes. But the photographer they hired on the side was Esteban Oriol. Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently,
fucking legend in the game.
I don't know how, but apparently he had seen some of the stuff from Trinidad's website, which was my stuff. And he was like, whoever you guys got, whoever's shooting that stuff, he's got a good eye, so keep him around.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, I didn't get to hear this compliment face to face, but the fact that I know that he saw my work, I was just like blown away because I'm like, this is someone that's been in the game
fucking years.
Like, he's shot with legends
since before we were born.
Exactly. Like, he's shot with legends that I've like adored. Like, the fact that he's been in the studio with Eminem, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube. Like, he's shot all these people that I admire from artist standpoint.
Yeah.
And for him to even be like, he's got a good eye.
That's dope.
It like made my year. I was like, I don't even care. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna like, and I even made it a goal. I was like, I don't know if it's like this with you, but I have this, what is considered almost not like a bucket list, but it's like a shot list of like things I need to shoot before I die.
I don't have one yet.
So
actually, maybe I do. I just haven't made it an actual list. But
it's a list of things that I have comprised where it's either people, events, or just little things that I want to capture. So for me, I always told myself, like, there's certain artists that I'm like, I will shoot with them. I don't care how long it's going to take or when it happens, if it's at a concert, if it's out in the open.
Okay.
I will find a way to shoot with them. Esteban Oriol is one of the people that I'm like, even if I'm like back like a back end photographer
Gotcha.
for him, I will make it happen.
Yeah.
And like I start pushing these goals, and as crazy as they seem, I'm like, if they land, they land. If not, at least I know I tried.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I'm like, I don't want to go by living the life and being like, you should have tried a little bit harder. You should have tried for this, or you should have tried for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, every time I shoot a DM to someone that's a little bit, out there popping, I'm like, if they read this, cool. If not, I'm back to where I was originally, which they didn't recognize me.
Exactly.
They didn't know me. So I'm like, worst case, I'm back to square one.
Yeah.
So I will take whatever I can get. And like, so even within that realm, like I have different places I want to shoot, and like it gives me kind of a goal outside of being a professional photographer.
Who are some of the people on the list that you want to shoot, like concert wise or just
So
in studio wise?
one person I will like vouch for that I like absolutely love. I think he's going to be a legend someday. I'm putting that on tape now. He is going to be a legend. Is JID.
Okay.
So he's a young end rapper. He's actually right under J. Cole.
Yeah, I'm from Dreamville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard his shit. It's real good.
Amazing, talented kid. Like, I don't know what it was when I first heard him that I was just like, this is something new. This is what hip hop needed. And for me specifically, like I grew up, it's funny because a lot of people ask me like, what did you grow up with listening to? And I've always heard like, the typical, I was listening to Sublime or the Beatles or, these little, kind of similar concepts. But I was like, when I was growing up, my mom had me in the back seat in my car seat, like listening to Tupac and Biggie. Like that's all my mom listened to. So I was like, to pay homage and like get into the rap game, like if I were to shoot with someone that I appreciate, oh man, it'd be like heaven. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Something about concert photography is such a different lane because you're capturing emotion while someone's performing. So
hell
it's
yeah.
like, it's almost like I love when I can take pictures of photographers when they're photographing or they're doing like their own photo shoots and stuff because it shows them in their element. And it shows what maybe not everyone sees goes into that passion or into that kind of behind the big picture.
Yeah.
And so it's always nice to kind of step behind it and see from a different angle.
Yeah.
Taking a picture of someone raging out, throwing their hands up in the sky, and then seeing someone in the front row crying their eyes out because this is the moment they've been so hyped for.
Yeah.
This person's probably been waiting a year, a month, counting down every second just until that moment that they're living in right there. And for me,
Yeah, man.
It's so crazy because with photography specifically, you're capturing these moments. Like, even if you're doing a photo shoot, you're capturing a moment that this person's going to reflect on. And I'm like, I hope you're going to show your kid that one day and be like, look, this is when I was confident. Like I was out here making it work. And I remember that time frame.
Yeah.
I remember after this shoot, I went out and had a beer, or after this shoot, I had just quit my job and then I started this new job after. And that's what changed my life in that form, or some type of memory attached to that photo.
Yeah, man. The photos can take you back to so many different thoughts of memories and just everything that goes into that moment captured,
And even like that, like it kind of gets into a sense like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you can really create poetry with your photography.
Oh, for sure.
And it's funny because I kind of get, I don't know if it's like this with you, but I get really into my groove of like, if I see something, it could inspire me. And it doesn't even have to be photography. I could listen to a song and I'm like, I want to do a video or a photo shoot to this song.
Yeah.
I want to pay homage to this song. This is what is inspiring me. Or I could go to the beach and then see like the perfect wave hitting with a bird flying over or something. And it's just like, all right, I want to do a photo shoot where someone has a dress that's flowy like the water. Their hair is going to have a bow that's like the bird. Like you just start piecing everything together.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how it just forms because you're paying homage or you're being, inspired by other artists. And it doesn't always have to be photography.
Yeah, for sure.
Good majority of it is.
Yeah.
But, sometimes it just hits you and you're just like, you feel this kind of like, I feel like a little kid, like when I have an idea for something, whether it's a photo shoot idea and it starts coming to fruition and like we're piecing it together. All right, you have, texting the model, you have the outfit. Cool. All right, we're going to shoot at this location.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. It's going to be sunny, or, oh, perfect. It's going to be cloudy. And everything starts kind of falling into place.
The whole vision just comes down and just, all right.
And it just starts feeling like a little kid. Like you're waking up on Christmas. I'm like, I'm so excited to shoot. Like, and then even in that moment, after taking one or two pictures and then looking at your screen and seeing like a preview of it, you're like, oh, I can't wait to edit this.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be killer. Like you get this like little joy in you that's just
You're super giddy.
no other. Yeah, like,
super excited.
I'm like,
and happy.
that's the best drug I could ever say that I've tried. Is just after a photo shoot like that, when you know that you've just like killed it.
Yeah.
You are fucking in heaven.
Hey man, we've all had those moments, and they're definitely worth it as a fucking creative. When you hit that picture and you're just like, damn, I did that.
Like
There's one shoot that I did for a friend of mine, bro. It literally, like, I was doing the photo shoot and I came home to edit everything. It brought me to tears because it was a fucking emotional moment in the studio, and like during the studio shoot, it was like I already knew what we were going for, and it was something that I never thought I'd be shooting, or for someone I went to high school with. She had breast cancer, and she's like, I want to capture these moments before I get a double mastectomy. Like, I want you to take the photos for me. I was like, all right, cool. So we were in the studio doing it and everything. And she started crying at one point. And like, I just stopped because I was like, I got emotional. I was like, fuck, I can't do that. And she's like, no, don't stop taking pictures of me. Keep the pictures.
I want this. This is real. This is raw. This is what I wanted.
Exactly.
This is me experiencing it and me going through it. If I just wiped away my tears, it wouldn't be organic.
Exactly.
And it's like you capture these moments, and it's like for me, I have this one photo. I actually just got it framed, and it's hanging in my room right now. But for me, I had this kind of rocky relationship with my mom. Kind of as a teenager, we would kind of butt heads a lot. But as I moved out, we kind of learned to appreciate each other, and she kind of started treating me more like an adult versus, oh, you're just a kid. Like, she kind of was like, she stopped trying to tell me what to do and learned to be like, hey, if you need anything from me, just reach out.
Gotcha.
And I appreciated her, and we kind of built this bond. And like, one thing that my family always notates is they always say that my mom's hands, they're starting to get older, so she has some wrinkles on them, but her hands look almost identical to my grandma's, who's passed away.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, I want a picture, because I would have wished that we had more pictures of my grandma that I could show to my kids eventually, or to show to my nephews and nieces who are growing up now. And I'm like, I wish I would have captured more moments, or I wish I would have started photography earlier, so I would have been able to get these moments to share later on.
Yeah.
So what I did is I just pulled my mom aside one time. I was like, you know what? For you, you're always drinking your coffee. You always have these, what are the French tip nails?
Okay.
Like your hands, your jewelry, everything that is your hands embodies you. Like I can look at your hands and I'm like, that's my mom. That's what means to me.
Yeah.
So I have a picture of her where she has her coffee cup, and it's one of those kind of traditional Mexican coffee cups that has a little Aztec designs, and it's like a greenish color. And I have her hands all around it. And in that picture, you see the wrinkles on her hands. You see her white
Nails.
You see her gold jewelry that she wears all the time. Like, it's universal. You hear that jingling. That's my mom. Like, and I caught it, and I just was like, this is my mom. So if for whatever reason I don't have kids before my mom is born, or sorry, if I don't have kids before my mom dies, I can share them with this photo and show them, this is my mom.
Yeah.
This is how I remember her. This is, and every aspect that I can think of, it is loving, nurturing. It embodies her.
Yeah.
And even for me, like, I ended up printing out a copy and sent it to my older siblings. So I have 3 siblings that have the same mom, and I sent it to the grandkids as well. And I was just like, I'm so happy that they have this memory that they can take with them forever.
Yeah.
And it just means so much to me, because seeing this photo, I'm like, it's kind of one of those moments where you're like, it's inevitable. We all die. It's a very dark space.
Yeah.
But at least I know that, like, her spirit is forever going to live on in that picture.
Exactly.
And I'm like, having this means more than anything. Like, I could value this picture more than my iPhone or my camera. Like, and that's a crazy thing to say, is I'm willing to put this picture before my own camera, because I'm like, this is her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you build an appreciation. And like they said, picture's worth 1,000 words. That speaks volumes for her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't feel like there's a negative connotation, or I don't feel any pain. It's only the good for it that got captured in that picture.
Yeah.
And like, it's crazy, because now I have that while I'm getting old, or while she's getting older, I'm always going to have that moment in time that I can remember. This was the peak for when I loved her the most, or when I like had this appreciation for her.
Yeah.
Because it was also a time when I took that photo was when I was also kind of finding myself. Like, I just dislocated my knee. I was in San Diego. Like, I was just starting photography, and it was kind of like, it hit me, and I was like, this is where I found myself. This is where I found like this is Isaac.
Gotcha.
And she had my back at that moment, which was one of the things that I appreciated, because that's when she finally started becoming what was more or less a mom to me.
Yeah.
So growing up in high school, it was more or less like we were just roommates butting heads all the time. But when I moved out to San Diego and picked up photography, and at that moment, even when I was doing photography, she was like, and even when I was doing dancing or rapping, she'd be like, whatever. But when I started doing photography, even she noticed it and was like, why aren't you shooting more?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you take your camera? Why don't you get some gigs? Why don't you start shooting? Like, she saw that how passionate I was about it, and feeling that love and nurturing of like, even she believed in me.
Yeah.
It kind of like was like crazy for me. So having that picture all together just embodies not only me changing, but embodying her love and her kind of spirit in that photo.
Yeah. And that's, like you said, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and they just bring you back to a certain moment in time where nothing can take that from you but yourself. Because if you forget it, because whatever happens, you're going to forget it. But that picture will always be there and will always remind you of that moment in time. You know, like, oh shit, my mom and I came to a good spot here. That's what reminds me of it. Cool.
It's really, it is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and like, I am curious to ask you though, because I have a select, probably top 5, which is hard to pick because they're like our babies. But do you have at least the top 5 or even like top 3 photos that you've taken that for whatever reason they mean something extremely special to you? And they may not even have to be like technical point. They could be something you started out and shot. Like, what is some of your photos that you've taken that really have stood out to you and like will hold a special place in your heart?
There's a photo that I took of, It was, so when I was younger, my mom came to the United States when she was pregnant with me. She migrated from Guatemala to here, 3 months pregnant with me. And I had no idea that I had brothers or sisters until obviously you get a little bit older. And when I was 5, we went to live in Guatemala for like 3 months. And when she took the opportunity to take a picture of my brother and my sister, me, her, together. And I always saw it growing up, and I was like, hey, that's a really cool picture. Finally, my brother and sister were able to come out here. I recreated that photo where it was just the 4 of us. And there was something in that recreating that photo where I was like, fuck. Like, the fact that I can do this right now is amazing to me. Like, I'm able to capture what happened so many years ago, and now I'm able to do it. Obviously, it's in a different setting, different lighting, whatever, but that's near and dear. One of the best photos I took was... You
have that photo.
Yeah.
And you can specifically say, like, I took it. Like, this moment in time, like, it's art. As trivial as some people see it, it kind of pisses me off when people are like, oh, like, I've had, like, wow, you give out your prices and someone's like, oh, like, I can take it on my phone, or I could hire someone else. And
Bro,
like,
we can go on like another 3 hours about that whole fucking topic.
But it's like, everyone thinks it's easy to just click away.
Yeah, people think it's just pushing a button.
Especially with nowadays with iPhones and such.
Yeah.
I mean, the quality is good, but the eye is a different lane. It's like, but I've seen that. Like, I've seen people who can shoot on iPhone and they're killer at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got the eye for it, you got the editing. But when you're in that zone of taking a picture, you give a little bit of your soul to that picture.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's a smidge or a good percent, like, you give a little bit of yourself into that picture because you are in that moment. You're kind of almost connecting with it. So even if you're doing a photo shoot with, you know, like you said, with your family, and you're recreating this photo, you're recreating it, but at the same time, you're putting this moment for you means something to you.
Yeah, it was me looking like me growing up as a kid, seeing that photo in my mom's house, and then when I was able to my mom was like, oh, I want photos of the whole family together. It was the grandkids, you know, my brother's kids were there, my sister's kid was there, my kids were there, and I was like, you know what? I want to do the one where it's the 4 of us, like it was back in the 90s. And she's like, okay, that's kind of weird. I was like, no, I want to recreate it because we've all gotten older. It's not going to look the same. And looking at it side by side, it's just like my little face, and then because my brother's 10 years older than me, my sister's 14 years older than me, so it's completely different.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like that one picture, it's super special to me. And then there's another, like, 2 photos of my son and daughter, but they're set on separate occasions. One is of my daughter when she was, I think, fucking 4 or 5, and I had just picked up the camera, and I took her to the park, and it was like I just took it, and she was on a swing, and the bokeh behind her and her, I was just like, damn, that's actually a really good picture.
Like it just means a lot
Yeah.
to you.
And then there's another one where I took a photography class at Palomar and one of the assignments was shallow depth of field. So there's a picture of my son where he was just running around at my mom's house, and I was like, I couldn't find him. I was like, where the fuck is he? And I finally saw where he was, and he was behind this bush, like on the other side of in the patio, and he was back there, and he was just playing. And then I went back there with my camera, and I was like, hey, hey Teddy, look at me. And he looked at me, and just he has this big ass smile with dirt on his face and dirt in his hands, and I'm just like, I took it, and then when I saw it, I processed it, and I took it to the teacher, and she showed it. She's like, that's a great photo of your son. Like like the way that you captured it and everything, like to me, it reminds me of that moment of running behind him, like looking for him and finding him and taking the photo, super like impromptu. And
it's like you almost kind of see the story without being there.
Exactly.
Like, I could tell the dirt on his face. He was running around for a minute. He was hiding for a minute.
Yeah.
Finally, you found him, and he's so ecstatic and happy that you found him. And like, that's his true reaction to him seeing you is like, that's my dad. Like, oh, he found me. And it's like this genuine moment that like you capture. And that's the good thing about photography is you get to relive this moment.
Yeah, like perfect example. I didn't take this picture, but the picture that's up there of me and the kids, and it's right there on the. You can probably look at it later. It's a little bit dark, but my girlfriend took it at the time, and I look back at it, and I remember that whole day of going out and exploring, like the beach, that hiking trail with the kids, just doing so many things with my girlfriend, the kids, and just so many things of that day. So every morning when I come down and I look at that picture, I tap it, and I like, if they're not here or they're, whatever, they're at school, I tap it, and I'm just like, I love you guys, and I walk down. That's just like my ritual every morning.
It gives you that like that little bit of love. So I'm sure like even if like they go on a trip to go see like the grandparents or something, you're home alone, like it gives you that sense of like, that's my family. I'm appreciative that I got them.
Exactly.
And I can't wait for them to get back. Like it's got this kind of like love for it.
Yeah.
So I got to ask as well, with you have 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
Have either of them tried to pick up a camera or telling you that they want a camera?
My daughter she's on the other side where she wants me to take photos of her. She has a whole Amazon.
She wants to be the model.
Yeah, she has a whole Amazon list of like dresses and just stuff that she wants to get, and she's like, "Can we do a photo shoot like this?" Because our thing has become where like she'll have an idea, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like that one right there on behind the TV was for her birthday. She was turning 12, and she's like, I want to do something with bubblegum. And I was like, cool, let's do it. So I have the pink backdrop, and we went down at the garage and just, bought a thing of bubble yum on Amazon and put them all on the seamless and just took pictures of her.
Yeah, see, and that's cool because then it like, I'm sure you didn't even think about like, oh, like bubblegum, like,
yeah.
And then you start piecing together, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I can do that. Okay, well, how are we gonna do that? Okay,
exactly.
And you start like getting inspiration for them, and yeah, because it's crazy because I don't have any kids yet, but like I love the idea of being a parent because I've grown up with 10 nephews and nieces.
Oh damn!
I'm the baby of my siblings, but I've grown up with nephews and nieces, so I've always had kids in my house, and I love those kids to death. Like those are like my kids. Like if someone told me, if you had to ride or die for someone, it's them, no questions asked. But my youngest niece, she actually just last year she told me, she was like. She calls me Coco because she couldn't say uncle when she was younger, so it's kind of stuck around with Coco. So she goes, Coco, like, I want to take pictures. Like, I like pictures, and I was like, okay, well, show me that you're convinced, and show me that you really want it, and I'll buy you a camera.
Yeah.
And so my sister starts sending me pictures. She's walking around with her iPad, and she's just taking pictures of her dad, taking pictures of the flowers, and I'm like, okay, she's really interested in it. So I ended up buying her a little a kid camera off of Amazon. It's like it looks like a little pig, but it's got an SD card in there. She can add filters. So I'm okay. Let's see how well she treats it. My sister ended up booking a trip. She won some type of sweepstake, and they ended up getting to go to London.
Oh shit!
And all the pictures from London, you can just see her in the background with her little pig camera taking pictures. Dope. And like it warmed my heart because I was like, I love that. I see the passion that I have for it, and I see it in her. And I'm like, I love it. Because, like, just seeing her with her camera, like, it brings me this sort of joy that I'm like, I kind of wasn't like I was pushing for any of them to like photography, but the fact that at least one out of my 10 nephews and nieces likes it, I'm like, I love that. Like, it just brings me so much joy to think that like they're so involved. And like when I go and I spend the night at my sister's to have coffee talk, I'll be editing on my phone or on my iPad, and she's just overlooking my shoulder, like watching and just kind of soaking in everything. And then with that, I'm like, it's crazy because I'm sure you can see there's kids that are picking up a camera 13, 14, and they're picking up almost the same amount of cameras as we are. They're getting a Sony or a Canon,
for real.
and they're killing it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, it puts us on our heels where we're like,
oh, fuck.
The younger generation's right behind our ass. Like we got to get competitive. We got to just top our shit. And it just is constantly pushing us. But also it's a heartwarming feeling to know that like photography isn't dying out.
Oh,
or
for
that
sure.
it's going anywhere anytime
Especially
soon.
in the whole, like, going back to what you asked me about if the kids ever wanted to be like a photographer or anything. My son, randomly, I had to go buy something from a local camera shop. And we went inside and I got what I needed. And he's like, hey, Dad, can I look at the binoculars? Because for some reason he really wanted to look at the fucking binoculars. I was like, yeah. I asked the dude. I was like, hey, can he look at the binoculars? He pulled them out. He looked at them. And he looked at him. He's like, he asked the guy, he's like, how much are these? And the guy's like, oh, they're $1,000. My son's like, oh. He gave it back.
Nope, never mind.
And then, so we walked out. We were starting to walk out. And the guy, he looked at my son. And he's like, you know what? I got something for you. And he pulled out this. I know it means nothing to a lot of people, but to my son, it meant a lot. He gave him this point and shoot film camera.
Yeah.
And my son was like, what? He gave this to me. I was like, yeah, he gave it to you. And he's like, but I don't have any film. And I was like, I'll buy you some. So I bought him some film. Yeah. He went for like 2 weeks just looking through the camera, taking pictures with his film. And he was like, oh, this is awesome. And he's like, I need more film for my camera. So now he'll always remind me.
That itch, and it just starts going and going.
Mm-hmm. He'll start reminding me. He's like, Dad, I need more film for my camera. I need more film for my camera. Or if I have my camera just in the back seat, sometimes I just like want to take a quick photo. He did this yesterday. He grabbed it and he's just like, hey, Dad, look at me. And he just started taking pictures of my camera. And I was like, I'm not going to stop you, bro. Like, if you want to take pictures, by all means, yeah. I didn't have the opportunity to have same thing as you. I didn't have my dad in my life to where like he can guide me in whatever way that I wanted. And luckily I'm able to guide him and to do something that he would want to do, and showing him that I'm passionate about something. He knows. He's like, oh, Dad's going to go to a photo shoot. Like, hey, Dad, how long are you going to take? Okay, cool. I'll see you after. Awesome. Have fun.
Yeah. And even then it's like showing that passion, like it's going to help if he does end up picking up another camera later on in his life and he wants to be a photographer, or if he decides, hey, I liked when my dad took pictures of the buildings. Mm-hmm. You know what? Maybe I want to be an architect. And it's like that same passion he's going to want for whatever his passion is.
Exactly.
He's going to be like, I saw how much my dad loved photography. I want to find something that I love almost as much.
And it's kind of like, I want to instill in them too, because I have passion for a lot of things that we do, Podcasting is definitely one of them. When they're here and they know that I'm going to podcast, I pull out all this stuff and they're like, oh, you're going to podcast. I pull out the lights. Like, okay, cool. Dad's going to podcast. I'm going to go up to my room. But they know that when I'm podcasting, it's something that I love doing. And they asked me, like, hey, can we podcast with you? I have 4 or 5 podcasts of just my son and my daughter where they're just talking just to talk to me because they wanted to hear what they sounded like on the podcast.
And there's a really, like, I think I'm going to get in trouble because, like, I keep seeing these cute-ass TikToks where, like, they're doing podcasts with their kids. And I'm like, all right, I might have to have a kid soon because, like, this is really, I'm like.
I might have to start, like, videotaping my kids when we podcast because I've seen those TikToks too. And I'm like, fuck, they're making, like, a killing right now.
It's crazy because it's just so genuine. And I think that's what I love. Like, that's one thing I appreciate. And that's why I think I try to channel my inner kid when I, like, do photography, is that there's just this sincerity. Like, little kids can be assholes, but they also can shine so much light.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't ever really lie. They tell you like it is, and they're just kind of like, hey, your beard's looking off. And I'm like, well, damn, fuck you. But like, all right, I guess I do need to go get it trimmed. Like,
like sometimes I'll have a pimple or something. My son's like, Dad, that's a big ass pimple. Or like, that's a big pimple, Dad. I'm like, thanks, bro. Like, fucking remind me. I know this.
I'm going to go squeeze it and it's going to be all red. All right, whatever. But like,
even, what's funny? Even my daughter, like, we'll go somewhere. I think we were doing something and she saw some guy filming with his camera, handheld. And she's like, that's going to be shaky footage. I was like, what? She's like, doesn't he need a gimbal or something? I'm like, fuck.
You're like,
I'm rubbing
damn.
off.
See, now they're already analyzing everything.
Exactly. They know, like, oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, one of my biggest critics right now is my nephew, actually, because I've done it 2 years in a row, and I know it's no one's fault but my own. But like, I'll start off the year and I'm like, new year, new me. I'm gonna start vlogging once a week. I do maybe 2 weeks in, and then I stop.
Yeah.
And so he'll be messaging me, or we'll play on Xbox, and he's like, "So, when's your next video coming out?" And I'm like, "I got something in the works." He goes, "Bullshit." I'm like, "Fuck." I'm like, "Don't be a little asshole." Like, I'll get something out, and it's like it keeps me on my toes because then I'm like, okay, yeah, I haven't done a good video project like that in a minute, and I'm like, maybe I should try it out. And
It's
like,
hard though. Sometimes like getting into that flow of fucking vlogging. Like I tried it too, and I was like, vlogging is not for me.
it's so much.
yeah.
I think for me though, I don't care so much for the talking in front of the camera. Like I think for if I was doing an intro or something, like it's fun to be like funny and quirky and like do like the cheesy transitions where you place a box and then it's somewhere else now.
Yeah.
Like it's nice to do those, but honestly, I love like cinematics. Like I love, like for me, it's kind of almost that moment when you're listening to like a sad song and you're in the back of a car and you're like heads against the window and you're kind of like, what if I was in a music video right now? Like, oh, like you're listening to the song and you're feeling that moment. And that's what I love about like doing the video side of it is I love creating videos where I can like almost make it like an homage to the song or like some type of music video styling. Cause it's so nice to make those moments and have these cinematics. Like even the last video I did, it was just with a friend who was like, hey, let's do a video. There's this pre-roll company that I like and let's shoot it. And then let's see if we can maybe grab their attention.
Okay.
And shooting that, the first thing we started messing with was I was like, oh, if we're going to do like a smoking video, my mindset goes to, I used to love watching old school like black and white films where they would have the shades and you would see kind of like the lines on people.
Yeah.
And the smoke, because of the whiteness, it would stand out in that little bit of black and then fade in with the white.
Yeah.
And it just stood out to me. So I was like, when we do it, I want to play with that. And I think if we have the smoke, it's going to create that kind of haze on it. It's going to look dope. It's one of my most recent videos, but I love it to death. And I'm like, I love it. Like, I keep forgetting. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's like this with YouTube, but I get this, like, if I haven't shot a video in a while or a photo shoot in a while, it's almost like I surprise myself.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm like, it's been a while, so this might be all right. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, I should start doing this more. And I'm like, that's the point, idiot. Like, get back out there and do it.
But it's hard because if you have a 9 to 5, like what do you do outside of photography for your job?
Yeah. So I work as a leasing consultant for some luxury apartments out in Carmel Valley area, like San Diego. And so my 9 to 5 basically consists of me trying to get people in, lease apartments, talking to residents. Like it's a constant like talking. So I get drained out.
Yeah, that could take a toll on you. You're like, I don't want to fucking go shoot right now. I just want to chill.
Like I get home and it's funny because I get home and like my girlfriend's like, I'll sit down and my girlfriend's right off the bat. Okay, so what happened with my day is I had this, and I'm like, I gotta have at least 30 minutes to just like let my brain unload, and then I can get back to normal. Like I have to have that transition phase from being from work Isaac to home relaxing Isaac.
Yeah.
And even sometimes I don't get those. Like this last week, it was a little bit hectic because I went to Vegas, shot a wedding, flew back, worked my 9 to 5, which it was just me in the office, so I was doing a lot more admin work than normal. So I'm busting my ass, getting home tired. Then the next day, going to work, and then as soon as I get off work, going straight to Sunset Cliffs to do an engagement shoot.
Oh, shit.
And then as soon as I'm done with that, going back home, working again, and then as soon as I get off of that, driving from San Diego down to Paris to do my nephew's gender reveal party. So I was just like 4 to 5 days of just nonstop.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I got to a point where as soon as I got back home that next day, I was like, I had Tuesday, Wednesday off. So I was like, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So I just spent the whole day playing video games and watching anime because I was like, I don't want to touch a camera. I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of be a Buddhist for a minute and just like not think of anything.
So it was a good thing that we pushed the podcast to this week then, because that would have been even worse. A whole another hour and a half talking.
It was just crazy. It was just, but it's funny though, because I love talking. So like half this podcast, I'm sorry if I like over like talked on.
Oh
you,
no, you're
like,
good. You're chilling. That's why I wanted this podcast, because for people to get to know you, because I didn't know that story of you where you came from. Obviously, I didn't know it, and we're not gonna fucking have talk like that over a beer at a fucking bar because that's not what you talk about at a bar.
No, yeah, you usually talk about photography and what the next projects are.
Exactly.
You don't have that kind of time to have a deep dive.
It's all surface level shit.
Yeah.
You never get in there and dig out a hole and be like, oh, this is who the person actually is.
Unless you stay up drinking. Because usually once you get to that like fifth or sixth shot or beer, and then you're like listening to like some slow jams in the back, and you're just like, I love you.
It doesn't happen at a fucking bar though. It'll happen like
at the beach or outside the bar or at the McDonald's drive-thru.
I've had plenty of those nights at this table where we're like, oh man, I'm so drunk, and then you just spew out some.
Just everything comes unloading. Yeah, like it's crazy because a lot of my good friends, I've had some type of moment like that, and it's like that next day I woke up with a better friendship with them, and I'm like, I love that. Like even like having this conversation with you, we've known each other. Probably how long ago was that event? We've probably known each other
like
realistically
3 years,
3 years, 4 years, and it's like we DM each other like, oh, good shit on this post, or oh, like this shit, and it's like it's all surface level. So to come do this and break it down, like I am truly honored even just to be like asked to be interviewed or like talked to on a podcast about this. So I'm like, I love that, and like learning more about you. I'm like, fuck yeah, like I gotta go shoot with him more. Like I gotta try to like break out of my normal circle and like start meeting other photographers, because when I do meet them, I find my own inspiration to make me want to like, even seeing you with this podcast setup, I'm kind of like, shit, I have this project that I have in mind, and I'm like, why haven't I done it? And I'm like, just go for it.
That's pretty much what happened with this. It's like I was podcasting with my cousin, and then that kind of fell through. He started doing his own because he moved to Vegas, and we were kind of doing the podcast through not Zoom, but this other web thing. And I was like, it kind of just fell through. And then my boy Tommy started podcasting, and he asked me to be on his podcast. And then I was like on 4 of his episodes, and I was like, like cool, this is fun. And then we started another podcast where it's the Dad Bods Anonymous one where we review food and do food challenges and all that shit. And then my girlfriend started her podcast, and I was like, fuck, everyone has their own thing. I need to have my own. But I've just been pushing it off for so long, just like I'll do it later.
It's so easy to fall into that like that little comfortable pocket.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you're still shooting on the side. You're still doing your photography. Mm-hmm. So to do an extra task, it's kind of like, if I do it, cool. If not, like, like I'm still doing my main thing. And it's like, you kind of neglect it.
Yeah, for sure.
You keep pushing back. But then once you actually sit down and do it, you're like, man, I should have done this way before. Like, I don't know why in my head it seemed more complicated than it is.
It's just getting in your head and then getting out of your head. Because once I started doing this whole thing of like, what it was for me is the whole reaching out to people. I don't like to bother people.
Oh yeah.
So when I started reaching out to people, and everyone, like the people that I did reach out to, they're like, yeah, I'm definitely down to be on it. I was like, fucking dope. Like I never thought that I'd have the responses that I had, and the fact that I have them, and I'm like, and I've have a few more podcast guests lined up. I'm like, this is dope. And I know that once this is released, it'll probably open more doors for me where I'm like, cool, I want to have those people. I want to have those conversations. I want to know like why, literally like your story. Like, why'd you get into this? That to me is what's more interesting than sitting here like, oh, what's your favorite type of camera gear? Yeah. Everyone talks about that shit. No one talks about like the depression that people go through as a photographer, as like, fuck, dude, I suck at photography. But then you have everyone around you like, dude, no, you don't. Like, why do you think that about yourself?
And it's so funny because everyone thinks that same thing. Yeah. Everyone gets into a rut where they're like, should I put down the camera? Mm-hmm. And then you have to kind of almost slap yourself out of it and give yourself tough love where you're like, you idiot, like, you got it. Yeah. You just got to imply yourself. And it's like, okay, perfect. Like, even for me, like, I can showcase, I don't know if you noticed this.
Yeah, I just saw it right now.
So I have the word smile on my hand, and it's supposed to be trivial. It's to the simple eye, it's, oh, when you grab your camera, it says smile, so you're pressing that trigger. But for me, it was, I remember going through high school and just going through this really rough phase of like anxiety and depression and like almost suicidal at one point. And once I picked up a camera, I felt like I was at peace, and I felt like no matter how big or how small, just a smile, because it could always be worse. Yeah. And it kind of snapped me out of it that, if for whatever reason you're at your wit's end and you just feel like the world is trying to defeat you, I can look down at that and it just gives me a chuckle as like a, just smile.
Yeah.
Everything's not as bad as it needs to be. Take a moment, reset, and like get yourself to get your balance back.
Yeah.
And so anytime I've gone through anything rough, I literally will take a moment, look at my hand, and I'm like, okay, if all else fails, you're a good photographer.
Yeah.
And it helps put me back into retrospective where I'm like, okay, use that. How are you going to use that to get out of your rut?
Yeah.
You want to travel? Start booking clients that are going to pay for you to travel.
Facts.
You want to meet new friends? Use your camera. Start meeting other photographer friends. Like I started channeling my photography and using it to kind of better other aspects of my life.
Okay.
And so even like brands that I love, I've reached out to and been like, hey, you know, how can I shoot for you and get your product? Like I believe in your brand, so I don't even need compensation. Just supply me with it because that's where my paycheck's going to go anyway. And let's build something from this. And then maybe I get one more client from you. Maybe I get 5 more. Maybe I get 10 more. And it kind of creates this kind of rotation of, I like this.
Yeah.
And it really sets in motion because then you start meeting new people and you start meeting new brands and new clients. And it is kind of like a humbling and very kind of, it really builds your confidence and builds you back up as a photographer when you have someone text you out of the blue and they're like, hey, I got your name from so-and-so. I saw the work that you did for them. I loved it. I'd love to set something up. And you're like, wow, like I didn't go out to you. You came to me. You saw my work and you specifically were like, I want to work with that person.
Yeah.
The style that I have in mind, I think you can bring my dream to fruition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that. Like anytime someone's like, I have an idea for a photo shoot, I think you can pull it off. I'm like, I know damn well there's plenty of photographers, specifically in San Diego, that you could have reached out to realistically, but you chose me.
Yep.
And it just like, it's very humbling. Because then I think about like, okay, well, maybe I am meant for this. Maybe this is my
Your true calling?
my calling card. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, love this. And I'm going to go for it.
And that's how it should be, man. Because a lot of times I feel that there are some photographers that, you big or small, they get their egos way too big and they don't want to help out the smaller creators, you know?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced or ran into a few. One specific, I had a photographer that I was starting to do pretty good, started getting my followers up, and I found out this photographer who I had been messaging and was like trying to keep cool card, and I was like, yo, like, you know, love your stuff, and he was reciprocating it, and I didn't realize, but one of my other friends was telling me, hey, I just want to let you know, homeboy's throwing your name on your dirt, or
Dirt on your name?
Dirt on your name. Like, he's talking bad about you. And it just, like, bugged me because I'm one of those people, I love it. Like, if you're going to hate on me or you're going to, you know, you're not going to like me, I'd rather you keep it real, tell it me up front. If we see each other, we're not cool. That's just how it is. But when you're telling me, like, I love your photography, but then you're going back behind my back to be like, hey, like, you know, it's whatever. Like, don't even, like, I wouldn't book him. Like, like, I'd be like, damn, like, you're not even giving me a fair fight. You're talking behind my back, so I can't even, you know, go for myself. Like,
I can't defend myself.
I can't defend myself, and I'm like, I hated that. So that was my first kind of taste of it, and then I kind of started learning. Like, I don't know if it's like that with YouTube, but which it's probably gonna be my catchphrase. I've noticed I said that like 20 times.
It's all good. You chilling.
But you kind of get a vibe from certain people. So there's certain people I've shot with, and I've gotten a vibe, and I'm like, this is probably going to be the only time I shoot with them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I'm like, after this, I don't think I'm going to shoot with them. And like, I've had like a couple who I did a pregnancy shoot for, and I wanted to be as partial as possible. So she didn't like them. She was like, she told me no direction. She goes, I want you to give me to go full range, whatever you think is best. They're going to be my pregnancy photos. Cool. Where do you want to do them? By the beach. Perfect. They're sunsetting. They've got a nice little glaze on them. I was like, cool. Perfect. These look amazing. I love them. She then starts trying to tell me, oh, I love them.
But.
And then she texts me like a few hours later. Oh, so I was showing them to my boyfriend and he thinks we could have taken these better on our phone. And I'm trying to, and I was like, well, you didn't specify what you wanted. You said you gave me free range to do how I please. And so I took that as
creative freedom.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. And I even was like, all right, let me send this to a few people, unbiased. Hey, what do you think of these? And 3 out of 4 people were like, I love these. Yeah. They look perfect. I don't, why? I was like, because the person that I sent them to wasn't happy with them. And as a photographer, it takes a hit because then you're like, oh, okay, like, did I just fuck up? Did I not do a good job? Did I not put my full 100%? Is there
We've all been
somewhere I
there,
could
man.
have improved?
Yeah.
And I kind of backtracked myself. And then I had to take a minute to be like, okay, did you really not like the photos yourself? Or are you just kind of taking whatever someone else is implying because it's not exactly what they thought?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you paid, not your boyfriend.
Yeah.
You are the one that told me what you wanted, not your boyfriend. And I was like, trying to be as pleasant as possible. And I was just like, look, if you want, I can reshoot them. And she was like, no, like, I would just prefer a refund. And I was like, well, you already have the photos, so that's really not an option because for all I know, you're just trying to get your money back and dip.
Yeah.
And it just like, it took me a minute because it threw me out of my groove, and then it had me questioning myself. But then I had to like realize that not every person you work with is going to be 100% happy with what they get.
Yeah.
You're going to get people that are ecstatics, people that are going to praise you and be like, this is the best photos I've ever had. People that are going to be like, I love this set. People that are going to be like, you are amazing. But there's always going to be that 1%, which is something I had to learn the hard way. That is, you can't please everyone. And
I'm right there with you, man. It happened to me once. And it was for a plastic surgery company. They wanted headshots. All females. I was like, all right, cool. I'm good at portrait photography. Headshots should be no different. I did the whole photo shoot. I did everything. And they told me specifically, the person who hired me was like, there's this one person who we don't like her smile. That was what she said to me. I was like, okay, that's kind of rude,
fucked up.
but all right. She's like, I'm going to be here when you take her photo because when I say a certain thing, the way she smiles then, it's acceptable. I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. All right. I was like, all right, cool. This lady was there the whole time micromanaging everything. And I was like, hey, my girlfriend's going to be here. She's going to make the women feel comfortable. She's going to, have small talk to make sure they're, all this stuff. She didn't leave until towards the end. And she was on top of everyone. And everybody there was super like already nervous because they don't know who the fuck I am.
And that sucks too, because that'll reflect in your photography,
Exactly.
which then tarnishes what they're expecting. And it's like, that's why whenever I shoot, I shoot at least 30 minutes of just bullshitting and getting someone out of that kind of first beginning awkward phase of like, all right, now that you got those jitters out and I'll crack jokes and you get genuine smiles, I'm like, now these are where the real photos start. But if you have someone constantly like
on top of it, like
lift your chin, turn left a little bit. No, I don't like that.
Yeah. And it's like, let me handle it. And she didn't let me handle it. I was like, fuck, dude. So finally, I took all the photos that I needed to take. I edited all the photos to the way that I edit the photos. She had seen my photos. She'd seen the work. She's like, okay, your editing's really nice. You know how to smooth out the skin, this and that. I was like, cool, great. I sent her the edits. She's like, I don't like any of them. I was like, what the fuck did I do wrong? So I was like, hey, I'm truly sorry. Like, what did I do wrong? What's wrong? And she's like, the edits are horrible. Nobody's skin is smooth. This person's hair is too thin. I'm like, I have no control over this person's hair.
Yeah,
like that's who she is. Like, I'm sorry that. So I sent them to another professional where I was like, hey, look, can you just look at this and tell me what you think?
Your opinion.
Yeah. And he looked at it. He's like, yo, like, what's wrong with it? I'm like, they told me this, and this. And they're like, yo, they're fucking tripping. Like, this is a great photo of this person. The lighting's on point. Everything's good. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. And I was like, they want me to fix her hair. They say it's too thin. And he's like, here, I'll help you. You can send it. He just like added a little bit more hair.
Yeah.
Like, super simple. And he's like, here, just send him that. And I sent him like a few fixes and never heard anything back. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to check their Instagram. Like, this was like 6 months later. I checked their Instagram. They used all the photos that I had taken, but they ran them through Facetune. Like, horribly ran through Facetune.
The amount of times that people have taken a photo that you take and then they like put a filter on it or add some type of change to it, it is so bothersome because it's like, I'm giving you this artwork.
Yeah.
And if you want any changes, I would hope that you would come back to me and tell me, hey, I wanted it more of, a warmer tone or a colder tone, or can you take this blemish out? Mm-hmm. I'm more than welcome to work with you on it. But I also like, as a photographer, the difference between it being re-edited by a customer versus being re-edited by just random like photographer. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it kind
And
of
I've
is like
also,
a blow.
yeah, I've also come to realize my girlfriend, she's super artistic. She knows a lot of different things that that I'm not aware of in the female body. So I was editing a photo one time of a model, and the model asked me to do a certain thing to her body that I was like, why would I ever do that? And she was a little bit bigger, not like, whatever, but she was a little bit on the heavier side. And she's like, she looked at the photo and she took the critique and she's like, look, in Photoshop, just move the arm slightly, like liquefy it to make it a little bit smaller. Just do that and then do it on both arms and right here on her chin. I bet you she'll love it. I was like, why would I do that? She's like, it's just something that a girl, they love that. And I was like, all right, cool. Taking it from the girl's perspective. I did just that. I sent it back and she's like, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
See, and it's so weird. I think that's another weird thing as being like a guy photographer where you're shooting a lot of like women and like women. You see a lot of different, not only women faces, body types, but you see a lot of what they consider as their flaws.
Yes.
And as a guy, it's kind of like, that's the point in photography is you want to see that beauty in it. Like if you have, stretch marks, that's the beauty in it. It shows that you've grown. It shows that this is you being a woman. Like that's how we perceive it. But for them, this could be something that is so like, this is something that haunts them every morning.
It's the body dysmorphia, the body image thing.
Yeah, it's their thoughts on it. So when I first started photography, I was very like against Photoshop. I was like, I don't want to like change anyone's body. I don't want to like fix anyone's like skin. Like I think that's like, I want to keep it as real as possible.
Yeah.
And through talking through models and talking to, my girlfriend and just kind of going through those phases, you start realizing, okay, realistically, this is just what they want from the photos because they want to feel as confident as they can.
Yep.
And as simple as it is, as fixing one or two small minor things, it's going to make the whole photo different for them.
And that was exactly what happened.
And it's crazy because like we don't see it. Like for me, I'm like, I just don't like being in front of the camera because I'm like, I just prefer taking the picture.
Yeah.
Like I have yet to find someone that I could be like, here, like hand the picture to them or hand my camera to them and be like, can you try to take a picture of me too? And then I'm like, I didn't like it. Like, never mind. Like,
it's like, oh shit, it's out of focus.
It's a struggle because it's always like you have what you want in your head of what it's supposed to look like. And when they don't get that right angle or that right, they should have turned the ISO down. It's like, you don't get frustrated. You're just kind of like, I'm not meant to take pictures. I'm used to staying from the other side of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but when you start seeing these different kind of like body dysmorphia or like the kind of like flaws that genuinely start coming up more and more, you kind of start getting ahead of it. And you're like, oh, I already see this is going to be an issue in Photoshop. Give some more space between your body and your arm.
The posing
and you start,
and all that.
You kind of adjust to it on the fly. And you'll notice because it's funny because you'll notice to read people's bodies and read people's like kind of faces when they're posing a certain way and they're like, they seem like they're wondering about something, like they'll keep moving their butt and they're like, okay, they don't like how their hip is turning on that angle. Okay, so how am I going to fix that so that way I don't have to do as much Photoshop, but at the end, if I need to, I will as well. And you'll kind of pick it up. And that's why I always ask people too, when I shoot with them, I'm like, okay, how do you feel the most confident? Like if you were to say like, this is me at my prime, how do you see that so I can capture that?
One thing I started doing, because my girlfriend comes with me as like my assistant on photo shoots, especially with female models. It's just a lot, it breaks the tension. It's a lot easier. What she'll do is she'll go up to him and she's like, what's your favorite side to take selfies on? Because a girl will have their favorite side to take a selfie on.
Oh, yeah.
So once she asks that question, she'll come to me. She'll be like, right side, left side, this. I'm like, all right, cool. So then I pose around that just to make sure that girl will feel confident and comfortable in her own skin at that moment. Because when you're around these lights, bro, this shit gets nervous as fuck.
Oh, yeah. The amount of times, even when I'm like messing with lighting and I'm taking pictures, I will self-judge myself like crazy.
Hard.
Like,
Hell
I'm like,
yeah.
all right, let me test my lighting out. I'll sit down, I'll set my timer. And I'm like, fuck. No, never. This is why I'm a photographer and not a model. Like, fuck this. And then you start kind of, you learn that like everyone's human. Like, that's how it is. Like, everyone has their preference. And even if it's not your preference, that's one thing I had to kind of step out of is that someone may look good in a certain position or a certain like pose, or it may look good to you, but to them, it's going to look completely different.
Yeah.
So you have to cater to what they like. There's been multiple pictures where I've taken pictures and I'm like, ooh, I like this one. And then I'll go to the next one and I'm like, that one's all right. And they're like, I love that one. And I'm like, okay, there's something there that I don't see that
Exactly.
you see. I'll edit it. That's
Yeah.
what you want. I got you. And like, they might even say like a little like, my hair is kind of just slightly, there's one hair that's going across my face. Okay, I'll Photoshop it out. I got you. And it's like the little things that you notice that wouldn't bug you if you're looking at the full picture, but they're so like
Zoned in.
analyzed on that one little spot or that one little space. And it's like, okay, if I can clear up your conscience by doing this one little adjustment that's going to make you feel way more confident, that's what I'm here for. Like,
Yeah, it's weird how us as photographers will look at the picture as a whole and we're like, all right, cool. That whole picture looks great. The model will come in because a male, female, whatever. I've had male model do it to me as well. Well, they'll look at the picture and be like, I don't like the way my foot is placed.
or my hands look really long right there.
Yeah, the most random thing that you have no idea to think about. They'll be like, I don't like the way that. I'm like, all right, hey, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you have to like the picture. But
I've had someone tell me, I've had someone tell me one time where they were like, their eyes were open the exact same length, or at least to me it looked like, and they're like, my left eye is closed a little bit too much in that one. I want to make sure they're symmetrical. And I was like, all right, let's run it back. All right, like, and it's just, I think it's almost, it helps the photo shoot as well because there's this kind of comedic aspect to it of like, all right, you didn't like that one? What are we gonna do next?
Yeah.
All right, let's try this out. And then you kind of get into a groove of finding what they like and what they don't like. And you kind of, I think the more you shoot with someone, oh man, you make magic so easy. Like,
oh, for sure.
the few people that I shoot with like regularly, or I try to shoot at least, a certain amount of times a year, like it is almost just like a dance routine. Like, you know what sides they like, what angles to pull. Like, my friend, I'm kind of bummed. He had to move to Cincinnati, but he was starting up his own brand called Crowned.
Okay.
So it's all Black owned, Black inspired. He's always trying to push Black entrepreneurship. And I was helping shoot for his brand. And I remember even working with him, I told him, hey, being a Hispanic male in California, there is a lot of racism that I've experienced in my life. But I was like, I don't want you to feel like you have to shoot with me because of we know each other from way back. And, it's just the easy way. If you want to choose to find a young, like, inspiring Black photographer, there's no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
I'm still going to support your brand. I support you. And he kind of told me, he's like, well, one thing is I want to show the bond between other races as well. So me being this Black entrepreneur and, having this Mexican photographer who we can come together and make something beautiful and inspire and help people. He goes, it makes more sense. And not to mention, he goes, anytime I've shot with anyone else, he goes, it'll take an hour to an hour and a half. He goes, we can knock out a full photo shoot, 3 outfits in 45 minutes. He goes, you already know what I like, what I don't like.
Yeah.
You're in and out really quick. And I was like, well, that's just because we have that history. But it's just crazy to build those relationships with people where it's just so seamless.
Yeah, it's having the rapport and like, all right, cool. I know what this person wants. Like, let's get it.
Yeah, like I will know his ins and outs. All right, you don't like your chin that way. You like it up a little bit more. You like, your tattoos to be shown. So I highlight those. I'll throw some a nice little filter on that will blacken those a little bit more. And like, you kind of learn the like ins and outs of that person. So when you do shoot, it's like you can almost do it with your eyes closed.
And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing for sure. Because like, a lot of people don't think that photography is an art form because they're like, oh, you're just pushing a button. At the end of the day, that's not all we're doing. We're looking at lighting. We're examining it. We're fucking taking, like you said, YouTube classes on it. Like, what makes the perfect light situation?
We're
like,
literally living, breathing it. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen, like, I get like a little kid, like, I see someone with a camera, I am nosy as fuck. I'll be like,
same,
what
bro.
kind of camera is that? What lens you got on there? What are you shooting? Are you shooting high, low? Are you shooting video? Like, I will just analyze the shit out of everything. And I'm like, it's not even for like perspective that I'm like judging. I'm just so excited because I'm like, I wonder how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, same.
It's fucking going to be sick, I bet. Like,
I do the
should
same
do
shit.
something like that. Like, I just start thinking of everything and I'm like, I love that. Like,
and then recently I started like geeking out if I see someone with a film camera, bro, I'm like, oh, dude, you're shooting film. That's fucking dope.
Bro, film photography is in a league of its own, but it's so humbling. Like, I think anyone who is going through a rut, if you're a photographer and you're kind of lost some type of inspiration or you're just not as shooting as much, grab a film camera and it will just fucking, you find this newfound love for photography.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because I went through a rut where I was shooting, and I was just doing the same thing, and it was just kind of, it blended together. And I had my friend who does a lot of photography or film photography out in Oceanside. He like runs it out there. Like he does a pop-up every Monday. He'll sell film and reuse cameras. If it doesn't work when you buy it from him, he'll return it back, get you a new one that works just as well. He is like as honorable as possible. But when I was starting to kind of get out of my photography phase and I was kind of like, okay, maybe this is just a hobby. He gave me a film camera. He's like, just try this out. Tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay. So my mindset going into film photography was always, okay, you know, you edit your colors and you make everything pop so much that with the mindset of going into photography, the beauty and the simplicity of it is what it is.
Yep.
You don't edit it. You don't change it. Whatever you take is how it comes. And the beauty in that is some of my first photos were blurry.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, it still looked nice. And I was like, I love this. Like, this is dope. Like, my sister actually got me it's a Brownie Hawkeye.
Okay.
So small little cube camera, fixed focal length. And I was like, okay. She got it for me as a present just to put on my shelf so it would look aesthetically pleasing. I was like, let me test this bitch out. Let me see if this works.
Mm-hmm.
Took it in Body Logan, shot a few things, got it developed. And I was just like, half the pictures didn't even come out. The other half were blurry. And there was like 2 or 3 really, really good photos. But I remember the beauty in that is I didn't care. It was like, I didn't care if I only got 1 photo or 2 photos. I was just like, I love this because there is no editing. There is no changing. It's however it is at that moment is how it was.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I loved about film photography is I could take my camera, take pictures, and if it comes out dope, it comes out dope. But also if it doesn't, I don't stress on it. It's just like, that's the beauty in it is that you take it. If it comes out, you get what you want. If not, it kind of inspires you to be like, I like this. I wish I would have done this different. All right, how am I going to make it better?
I love it because it just slows you down too. Because with the digital camera, it's just like, all right, cool. I got it. That's what it looks like. Dope. With the film camera, it's like, all right, I'm going to take my time with it, make sure that
and you don't want to waste that film because that film is expensive as fuck.
Even the developing process, bro, fuck. But yeah, it slows you down and makes you think about the shot you're going to take before you take it. And it's just, it's a different game to play. And it's so much more fun sometimes.
Oh yeah. Like it's so easy to get caught up in having an SD card and okay, I like this, delete it. All right, make room, take another 5. Let me take 20. All right, out of 20 of those photos, I like 2.
Yeah.
Like it's so easy to get into that kind of, or if I don't like it, I can just delete it. But to take a film camera and you're limited to only 24
or 36 shots.
Like you're stuck with that.
Yeah.
And it's like you get in this groove where you're like, these shots are worth gold. And you're like, I can't just take 2 of the same shots. Like I got to get right in that first one.
Yeah.
Or if I do miss that first one, I'm willing to sacrifice that next shot because the shot is so important to me. And it's like, it's so beautiful though. Cause like you start finding different film has different looks. You have
the different grain sizes are just like, oh, dude.
It's like so much to tweak without really tweaking it.
Or even like the colors in a certain film stock where you're like, oh, the colors in that one are way better than that one. I'm going to shoot that one more than that one. But the grain on this one is better than the grain on that one. And
or even shooting like expired film.
Yeah.
And it has a different look than regular film. Or shooting black and white. Certain films are like the blacks and the whites are so much more richer and contrasty.
There's this one brand of film that I wanted to get, but they sold out because it was just a limited run, and it was the film that they used to use in security cameras.
Oh,
so the grain on it just looked completely different than normal film. I was like, damn, that'd be dope to shoot, but they were sold out. It was just a limited run. I was like, fuck, I wish I would have got it. I'm pretty sure it would look dope as hell, just getting some black and white images. But yeah, man, it's this whole realm of photography is like fucking a fun thing to do if you're super passionate about it.
Oh, it is so comforting learning film photography because it almost feels like with a digital camera, you feel like you learned everything, you know everything, and then you get humbled real quick when you pick up a film camera for the first time. You're like, maybe I don't know as much, and it kind of has you reteach yourself and you learn new things on the way. And I'm like, I've
Yeah.
taken that into account for when I start doing my portraits now. I've done portraits on film, and I'm like, how can I get it to be that good? Because some of my portraits on film have looked way better than the ones on digital. And I'm like, oh shit, like, how do I, like, you can't recreate that. Like, it's so, like, genuine in its time frame that it's like, it definitely will humble you.
There's just this feeling of when you look at a film photo compared to a digital photo that just, there's just something about it. You can't explain it unless you're a photographer and you love that shit. Like there's one time I did a whole photo shoot with obviously my digital camera, and then I was like, can we do some with just film? And she's like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And I treated it like a digital camera, and I was going fast doing this. And then when I got the film back, I was like, fuck, they're all fucking blurry. Damn it, you idiot. So those have never seen the light of day. But I learned now when I'm shooting with the film camera, slow the fuck down. That's why I think of it as such a slower pace.
It's a good, like, almost like meditation.
Yeah.
It's a good kind of breather from the normal photography. It's kind of like if you're driving a Lamborghini 7 days out of the week, and then you decide to drive a Bomber one day out of the week. And you're like, you can't race this thing down the highway, but you can cruise it on the coast, and it's like there's the appreciation for taking it slower. And you're like, I'm taking in that moment a lot more, and it is like, it's crazy because even like for me, I found this camera, and I was like, I loved it because I could start mixing kind of the two of my loves. So it's a Canon Rebel G.
Okay.
So it has the EF-ES adapter, but it's a film camera. So I can throw my 70-200 on that film camera.
Oh, shit.
And shoot it like it was a digital, but it's still going to be the film output.
Nice.
And it just was like, it was so nice to use my lenses that I know and love, but take that time and go slow and like enjoy.
But there's no
the film
autofocus
aspect.
though, yeah.
Yeah, so you're manual focus and everything, but it gives you that appreciation, like the appreciation of learning manual focus, and the people that can do it like on a dime.
Yeah.
I say props to you because it still takes me a good minute. I was like, I'm blind enough as it is, and then trying to do a manual focus, I'm like, I think it came out nice, and then I print it out, and I'm like, it's blurry, but if I take off my glasses, it's clear.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you before we wrap everything up, if you had a dream setup, what would your dream setup be? No money is fucking like involved.
Money's not an option.
Yeah, you could just get whatever the fuck you want, and then with that dream setup, you had your dream photo shoot. What would it be?
That's a hard one.
Gotta put you on the spot like that.
Gotta put me on the spot. Yeah. So, okay. I've always loved the Canon 1DX Mark II. Following Peter McKinnon and just watching him, I was always inspired by him and just how he captured things, whether it was video or photo. And it just really stuck with me how beautiful they came out. And Canon EOS R is definitely stuck with it. I love it to death. If I had to go off of just specs and thinking whatever's going to be the best, I would love to just have my hands on a 1DX Mark II.
Okay.
Once, because it's just a monster of a camera.
Talking about weight, that motherfucker's heavy as hell.
That thing's heavy. Like, you're going to be buff by the end of your workout.
Oh, fuck yeah.
But I love my 70-200. And I always have to have some type of wide angle. Like, literally on me at all times is always my 16-35, my 70-200. And which is so funny because I started off with only liking prime lenses. I was like, zoom lenses, like, and I don't get that clarity that I want. And I would always stick with prime. Once I got my hands on those two, I realized they cover a good amount of range that you don't need much. I love those. So I'd probably have my 1DX Mark II. I'd have to have my 70-200 and my 16-35. Dream photo, though, or photo shoot setting.
Yeah.
You know, I really have loved the idea. I have yet to do it, but I know there's a studio out in LA that I would want to try. I would love to do a 50s like diner shoot.
Oh, I know.
I'm talking like pin up, red lips, hair up, candy, and just everything that is colorful would be envisioned in that photo.
Okay.
And even in the aspect of not just even just a female model, but like a kind of like 50s greaser style.
Okay, for sure.
Like slick back hair, cigarette in mouth. You got the like cigarette carton tucked into the sleeve, like
with the jean jacket holding on back,
jacket,
or
like,
not even the leather jacket. Sorry,
them two like sharing a milkshake or something. Like I think that would just be phenomenal, especially with having all the lights set up and everything.
Okay,
I just would love to capture all those photos, and then try to capture something that would be timeless. Like for me, I love looking at eras in time and trying to think like that's one thing that I've kind of reason why I fell in love with photography is like there's so many pictures that were taken years ago, but people still use them as a reference. People admire them. People will take this photo and it means something to them. Like just like I'm gonna butcher this, but the name of the photo, what is it called? It's the one that they have the statue for in by the Navy base, or not Navy base, but the Navy ship.
Oh, the Midway one,
with the sailor who had just gotten home from war and kissed his wife.
I don't remember
or
the
kissed
name
the girl.
Yeah,
but he kind of ducks her over, and it's like in that moment, it's this pure joy of him being home from a war, and this woman not even caring that she's just glad that these men are home safe, and he's just kissing her in pure happiness.
Yeah.
I don't think anything would fly like that nowadays, but
in the climate we're in, unfortunately, but you know,
it was a different time. She didn't have he didn't have consent, but along those lines, like it's just capturing those moments and just kind of being so timeless. Like if I could take photos like that, I think it would be dope because then I would also instill a film camera and then just put them out on the internet and I'd put them under an anonymous account and then let it be seen as if, is this something from the 50s or is it something someone took recently? And just let it be lived as just that one art piece. Yeah.
That'd be dope.
But what about you? What's your go-to dream setup?
Dream setup? Oh man, it's all over the place. But if I could shoot with a Hasselblad, or if I could just buy a Hasselblad, bro, I would fucking get one of those. I shot on one of them at a trade show, and ever since I heard that shutter go off for the first time, I was in love, and I was like, bro, I need one of these in my life.
There's a special joy coming from just the sound of a shutter.
Fuck yeah. Dude.
I mean, even going from a DSLR to mirrorless, I mean, both have different sounding shutters.
Yeah.
But I find an appreciation for both of them. And there's just something so, like, it's like ASMR for photographers.
Oh, for sure.
You hear that shutter, you're just, like, in love.
But yeah, the first time I heard the shutter of the Hasselblad go off, dude, I was like, fuck, I need one of these. Just a monster of a camera. I don't even care about the megapixel count because I know some people are like, oh, why would you need 100 megapixels? It's my dream setup. Let me be.
Let me live.
You know, I would shoot on that. And honestly, dream photo shoot would be a concert with Kid Cudi. I want to shoot Kid Cudi or Pharrell Williams. Those two are like my idols. I would love to shoot them either in the studio, just lifestyle shit. Like that would be fucking dope to me.
I think there's such a beauty in that too, because it's like it's crazy that, like, I love seeing photographers that are blowing up, and like I'll follow a few that are like photographers for like big artists, and I'm like, the amount of like just passion in that room.
Yeah,
I could only imagine what that feels like. That sort of high of maybe being in the room with J. Cole as he's creating his newest album, and he's working with some of his Dreamville artists who might potentially take his throne eventually someday, but they're just idolizing him.
Yeah.
And it's like this passion of like, I always trip out on that because I'm like, for a photographer, you're taking a photo, and in a lot of that aspect, no one knows how you're going to do it. There's setups, there's trial and errors, there's, let me take a picture with this. I didn't like that. I should have shot higher. That's what it was. And same thing with music is that it's like lyrics and beats and timing and how they say these things. It's all kind of combined, and it's kind of like you can have a lot of the same tools, but it's what you do with those tools that make you stand out. And with photography, I've seen so many photographers that have the highest quality gear, but they're not really doing anything with
exactly.
it. But then I've seen photographers who are just starting out with a Canon Rebel T5
or even a cell phone,
or a cell phone, and I'm like, oh my God, like you were gonna keep me on my ass. Like I know you were like gonna blow up.
It's just the passion and love for it. Like that's what pushes you. And I feel like, I honestly feel that's why I think that's why I said Kid Cudi and Pharrell, because at the time when I was 17, turning 18, it was right when my daughter was born, and that was right when Kid Cudi dropped his album, Man on the Moon 1, and that album to me fucking meant the world. There's just something about it. I was just like, this fucking album, it just pushes me. And then Pharrell, he was doing a bunch of stuff with NERD, and there's a song that he had on one of the albums. It's called Provider. It's like that fucking song. I listen to it to this day, and it gives me the fucking chills of being a 17-year-old kid, knowing that you're gonna have a kid at that fucking 17, and like how the fuck am I gonna provide for that little girl? Like
it sets in motion for that time.
Exactly.
Because that specific time for you is exactly what Bad Fish by Sublime was for me in high school.
Okay.
Feeling like you're such a screw up, like,
oh dude, Bad Fish is
everyone's-
one of my favorite fucking Sublime songs too.
puts me in a mood 95% of the time. But like that moment and that song means so much to me, and that they would have been one of my top, like, I would love to take pictures with them. I'm a little picky just because of Sublime with Rome. I'm like, it's not the actual Sublime.
It's not Brad.
But I would still love to take pictures of them. But like to meet Bradley and to see that band in its prime, like I was lucky enough, I will say that I've been blessed enough that I went to Coachella probably it's been about 5 years back already.
Oh shit, okay.
And Ice Cube was headlining. And I went on the second weekend, and I was lucky enough that it's a moment I will carry for the rest of my life, that I got to see Ice Cube bring out NWA.
Oh.
And on the first weekend, he brought out his son.
Uh-huh.
This weekend, he brought Eazy-E's son to do Eazy-E's part.
Okay.
And then at the very end, he brings out Dr. Dre. And it's the first time that NWA had been on stage together in 30 plus years.
Fuck, dude.
And to live in that moment, I was just blown away, because here I am just thinking I'm going to get to cross Ice Cube off my list of artists that I get to see. And to see Dr. Dre, who's someone who doesn't really pop out too much anymore, like he rarely has his occurrences. And then not only after that, did Kendrick Lamar come out for a song as well. And he was just like so much hip hop generations all in one. You had The Game opening up for him.
Oh, damn.
Then you had Ice Cube. Then he brought Eazy-E's son out to do Eazy-E's part. And then you had Dr. Dre come out. And it's like, these are legends in the game.
Yeah.
Like, these are people that have shaped what is hip hop.
Yeah.
And I was like, the only thing that could have made that more perfect is if Tupac would have came down from like heaven.
Right.
Like, these are people I've admired, and like it inspired me, because I was like, these are moments that I want to constantly grow to have and cherish. And if photography can take me in that way, it's just going to make it that much sweeter.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad I had you on the podcast, because that's why I wanted to start this podcast, just to get to know like the vision behind people and like what pushes them, what motivates them. Like all this shit to me is what makes a good fucking podcast. Like I love the gear talk. Like I'll leave that for other podcasts, you know?
Oh yeah.
But for this one, like I said, I want it to be where I get to know you, and that's what we're doing here, and I fucking love it. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. We're going almost 2 hours.
Good shit. A lot of talking.
So I'll go ahead and plug your shit right here. Let them know where they can follow you, your YouTube, your Instagram, all that.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. I might be having a project out. We'll see, depending on when I get to it. But it's i.angelphoto.
Let them know right there.
Oh, all right, bet. You can find me on Instagram, i.angelphoto. If you want to check out some of my film photography, it's exposure.self. But yeah, I mean, my photography is, I just want to see the world in a different light, showcasing all the colors and just really inspiring people. So even if there's any photographers that are just starting out, you have a question, don't hesitate, reach out. My DMs are always open. I love helping people and letting them find their passion.
And I can attest to that, because his DM was open when I needed that lens. So, all right, everybody. And I'm Teddy Osuna, and you guys know where to find me, because, yeah. All right, guys. Peace.